calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matteo Souza.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Restart Recharge. Thank you guys for being here. We are back from break and ready to tackle the new school year with you. Now, doesn't matter whether you're an established pro and instructional coach, whether you're joining a new school or whether you're brand new to the gig, we brought in two of our own coaches to give you tips and tricks to get started for the year.
Yes, and we have missed you listeners, but we're excited to be back from our little summer pod break as well. And I am really excited to introduce as a guest, and that is Celine Thomas, or as we like to call her by her DJ name, Queen Celine. Sorry, Celine, had to out it. Celine just actually finished up last school year as an instructional design coach with us here at Forward Edge for her very first year in this coaching role. And she has a master's in instructional design and technology and a bachelor of science in education in secondary education. Celine has experience from classroom teaching to facilitating university courses and working as a content specialist for a company called Chalk Talk. Celine is also our co-producer here at Restart Recharge, and she will be a co-host coming up. Welcome, Celine.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
Celine is also the reason I keep my brain together and why the podcast is still running the way that it does. And joining her is Jamie Clausius, who has been with our team for about 2 years now, coaching in multiple school districts. Jamie has 10 years of experience and a 7 to 12-year science teacher, and now she represents Google for education at conferences.
Welcome, Jamie.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We are so glad to have you back again. Okay, Celine, we are going to start with you and reflections on your first year as an instructional coach last year in a brand new district. And so just talk to us, what was that like? What were maybe some of the biggest challenges you faced that you think some other coaches could learn from going into this school year?
Yeah, for sure. So I dove right in. I really had no expectation of what I was going to be doing besides being prepped for what an instructional coach was. So I really was just nervous about everyone getting to know me and me getting to know them. Just having those first day feels just like any teacher would in the classroom. You want to get to know your students. You want to develop that rapport. So I was able to take that aspect of teaching and apply it here, the same thing. So my first couple weeks were a little scary. It was like learning a new building. One benefit though, I actually had Jamie. She was going to be my walkthrough during that time. I grabbed her hand and was like, hey, girl, can we just take a tour around the building and walk through, meet some of the teachers? She was there a little bit prior to me arriving, so that helped a lot. I think a big thing for me was just really in the first couple months after that was getting to know who I was working with. So just to finalize that point, I think the biggest challenge was making sure I was putting myself in a situation where people were allowed to get to know me before I was even able to start the coaching process. So that was a huge challenge for me, is getting into all the different buildings, and overcoming the challenge was just using what I knew as a teacher, developing rapport, talking to people in the break rooms when they had breaks, participating in little hallway activities or when the students had assemblies, sitting with the teachers while they're just working on things. So just putting myself in spaces where they were having more of social interaction versus actually in the classroom. That was a huge way for me to get past that hump.
Yeah, that's great. Really focusing on getting to know them as people as opposed to just, hey, all you are is this teacher for these students.
Yeah.
So looking back at the year now with a whole year behind you, more like training, a better understanding, feeling better, more secure in the role, like better vision moving forward, meeting with admin. Big question to kick it off here early in the episode with, but like looking back holistically at the whole year, what do you think you would have done differently, particularly at the beginning of the year, given like the theme of this episode?
Yeah, for sure. I think probably my biggest thing was outside of the social aspects was really sitting in the classrooms more. I think I was trying to give the teachers space to get to know me, but alongside that, getting to know the students was a core thing too. So despite me having the ability to know the teachers, I really didn't know what the students needed in particular from my
Mm.
coaching as well. So that trickle down effect was huge later down the line. Once I realized the demographic a little bit later on, I was like, oh, okay, I could have coached in this way a little bit better, knowing the demographic in that way. So I think I would have started just leaning more into being comfortable getting into classrooms. I think my biggest fear was that I didn't want the teachers to think I was like observing them specifically. I didn't do it as often as I should. I think that's one big thing I wish I would have done.
Yeah, that is good advice. And I'm going to push you a little bit just because would bet, like, also having been there myself
Mhm.
and just knowing and having talked to a lot of coaches, I think that's probably a common fear that coaches have about when have I built relationships enough and when is it time to start pushing in and do the job that I've been hired to do and how
Yes.
do I start to make that transition? So if you had to give like really specific advice, like just based on your own experience in the role, what is like
Mhm.
a really tangible thing that you would tell a coach to do to help them make that shift a little bit sooner, either whether it's getting into classrooms or getting to know the students to then maybe better serve the teachers?
Yeah, for sure. One space that I know for sure that you can navigate right when you start at the beginning of the year are the staff meetings. So even before you go to individual classrooms, just giving the teachers a synopsis of what you're going to be doing in the next few weeks. Hey, I would love to come spend time with you all in your classrooms, not to observe or anything, but more so just to hang out with the students, see what they're learning, and see what ways I can support you in the classroom. Just making really meaningful conversation in that way so that they feel comfortable with what you're doing versus just popping up throughout the school year randomly. And I would even say possibly talking with admin and scheduling some time to figure out what areas that they want you to focus on with specific teachers, or if there's like a schedule that you want to build. Maybe you need to go to a specific building or a specific space on a certain day. That way, the teachers are expecting when you're going to be there in that area. And it's not more a surprise or anything like that on either end.
I like that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about the admin connection a little bit more later too. We'll have some more follow-up questions on that. So when you were also going from room to room, so here's a random question. What was your number one topic to bring up that was not teaching related to build like connection?
That's a good question. I would say it really just depended on upon the teacher. So I tried to not force anything technology wise in their face, but depending upon the season, it'd be like, hey, do you all do anything for Thanksgiving or anything fun you have coming up for the weekend? Just a little conversation that you would normally have with people. So just normal things.
Yeah, I was just wondering because everybody has something different. For me, it's usually like talking about Bravo and reality TV or
Yeah.
whatever I notice on the classroom decorations. Katie's losing it because that's I'm sorry. Um,
Big Bravo guy.
Yeah.
it
Me too.
happens. Jamie is too. I know she is.
Bravo girl.
So actually, I'm gonna flip over and ask Jamie a couple questions if that's okay.
Yeah, go
All right.
for it.
Jamie, you actually had the opportunity to go into a bunch of different districts, one after another, and you've had a lot of different experiences. You've been in the school community, introducing yourself a bunch of times.
So Jamie serves as a coach and she helps us with backfill of other coaches. So maternity leave, paternity leaves, any last minute contracts that come through and they want to coach. Jamie's there to really support us and in with coaching in that way. So that is where over the past couple of years, Jamie has plugged in as a brand new coach to I don't even know how many districts, Jamie, at least 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah. 4.
But at that point, you've had so many opportunities to like, you got to get over that hump really quickly and build some relationships really quickly.
Yeah, thank you for catching that. No, absolutely. And yes, in a short period of time, you had to add yourself into that community. What works? What didn't work? And what were some of the things that you were surprised by?
Yeah, so like Katie said, thanks for that little bit of an intro, Katie. I've had the experience and opportunity to coach in a bunch of different districts. Therefore, I've met a ton of teachers and administrators and students. And as every district is different, I always found myself going back to similar practices whenever I started at a district. And it didn't really matter how long I was there. One district, I was there for 6 weeks. Another district, I was there closer to 3 months. But I always had these kind of fallbacks to go on, really to integrate myself quickly, which was really nice. And one of my main ones, which I actually got the idea from another one of the coaches at Forward Edge, was to create a little bookmark, like my take on a business card, essentially. I had my picture on the top and then gave some background information about me. Hi, I'm Jamie. I was a teacher for 10 years. It gave some of my likes and my dislikes. So I love to go hiking and love to play games with friends, pretty much just anything that I could physically hand to a teacher so that they could, one, be seeing my face, and then two, just to get to know me quickly. Because I was just saying, if I was only in a district for just a couple of weeks, I needed to build that relationship pretty quickly. And as I walked into a classroom to meet a teacher for the first time, if I could give them something to hold on to, that was more likely for them to remember me the next time I came back around, because I was just this fresh new face. Specifically, the very first district that I did this for, filling in, it was at the very end of the year. And it was just a really quick stint. So walking in, giving that bookmark to the teacher. And then when I would come back around to check in with that teacher again, some of them had them like pinned up on their bulletin boards behind their desk. And they'd be like, oh, yes, Jamie, I remember you. So that was always something really easy and also just fun for me to make that a lot of teachers actually thanked me for when I would give that to them. It was just an easy, quick way to make a connection.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. It's having something physical in the end, and you already feel like you're getting a gift in that moment. I love that. That's pretty smart. So my next question was multiple different districts, multiple different locations. Have you noticed differences in terms of how culture might affect the way that you introduce yourself? Because in some schools, maybe one thing works better than another thing. Have you noticed anything like that happen to you in those transitions?
One of the things that I like to do when I walk into a district for the first time is just assess the situation, really get an understanding for how the teachers are feeling, and then going from there. So, like Celine was saying, really just starting with base level human connections and relations is always, in my opinion, the way that I found the most success. And then a lot of the times teachers will bring up things that I can help them with. And it didn't matter how big, how small, however I could be helpful for them in that time of need. That was like my in. And then as the next couple of weeks or months that I was there, that would just give me a little bit more business. And I could go back to that teacher if I made that first kind of initial foundation on just a human level first.
Matthias, I think you bring up a really great point with that pivot there. And you've both, why Celine, you've been full-time coaching at one district. You've also done some work presenting and leading PD and working with teachers in other districts. And you taught in other districts, right? We all have experience, and that you can walk in a building, even different buildings within the same district, but certainly like district to district, and you can walk in and there's just a different vibe going on, whether it's really positive or really negative. And I think when you're in the really positive vibe and culture space, it's a lot easier to walk in and build those relationships, and people are a lot more open chatting with you about their Thanksgiving plans and what's coming up. But what's really difficult is all of our coaches who are in the places where you walk in and you're like, ugh, this is not a great vibe here. And so I'm curious what either of you might give coaches who are in that space walking into a not so great culture, if there's special tips that you might give them, considering like how they might go about building that rapport and those relationships with teachers earlier in the year, when that's not typically the culture of the school, is to be accepting to someone in a position like yourselves.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I think the first thing I had to realize is regardless of where you go, and this is just throughout all of my experience, is don't take it personal if it is something that's negative. It's the world of teaching has changed so much in the last few years. So we have to be mindful of how different emotions are nowadays. with everything that's happened in the past. Just knowing that it's not a personal reflection of who you are and that you can still maintain a positive space mentally. You just have to push through. And with that, I think one thing that I was able to do right off the bat was going to where I knew I would be accepted immediately, which was the English department. And anywhere that's English in life. I think that's the first place I ran to as a coach because I was a high school English teacher. So I immediately locked in with that department just to get a view of what their culture was and what their experience was, and being able to trade off ideas almost immediately because I just came from that space. So if you're a new coach coming in, I would definitely recommend, not to say it's like an easy way out, but it is somewhere that you can start. If you are familiar with elementary, go to the elementary building first, see who you might have the ability to share ideas with, and that might be a good place to begin.
Yeah, I like that because we all need our safe space. The work we do is really hard. We need a safe space too.
Indeed.
And those people who can be our early adopters and our like confidants. And I like how you also mentioned that you also tried to learn the culture and the why is this done this way through these people who became your safe space. And I think you also make a really great point of not taking it personal, which can be really hard to do in the moment. But I think if we, I don't know, maybe every coach this year, especially if you're in a place, just write, don't take it personal and stick it on your computer. Just to remind yourself over and over.
I think it's hard too because if you're joining a community like this, you are new and you will also be looked through the lens of the position that you have, and therefore you might be representing something that not everybody is excited about. So that's something important to keep in mind. Yeah, don't take it
Exactly.
personal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just scary because of the title you have.
Yeah. Jamie, do you have any insight to add to this question?
Yes, I think as soon as Katie, you were talking about it's really easy to talk to teachers and admin and support staff if the spirits are high in a building or in a district. But right where it's not so high, teachers can be a little bit, or anybody could be a little bit standoffish potentially and maybe not want to have that face-to-face conversation. So I also like to send out like a survey where teachers can be telling me a little bit about themselves, but then also really bringing to light ways that they could use more support. It just might be teachers are really thriving, a little bit more support. And as coaches, that's what we can do. We can go into that district and we can be supportive for them. If the teacher isn't comfortable saying that to me in person, they can fill it out in the form that I send out, and then I can make that connection, go check in with that teacher. And I've gotten a lot of traction that way too. So if you are, any listeners out there, if you are struggling in that aspect to maybe build those initial relationships, try a form, just a simple Google form. And it could be really basic. You could get in depth with it, but that might be more of like a safe space, like we were just talking about, for teachers to reach out and ask for some help.
I love that connection that you just made, that in the really thriving positive cultures, teachers more than likely feel supported. And there's a direct connection to that support and that ability to persevere through the hard times when you know that you have the support, and a direct correlation to teacher retention in a really difficult time when they have the support, and coaches are huge support for teachers. So I love that correlation that you just drew. I don't know if you have anything else to add before we jump into the next cue.
I say we actually take a quick little break first.
This is why I check with you midway.
We are on a roll today. Yeah, we're gonna hand it over to our sponsors for just a few seconds, and then we'll be right back with Jamie and Celine talking a little bit about the admin relationship.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers and learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges.
Unlock the full potential of instructional coaching with Forward Edge, your partner in professional growth. Instructional coaches play a vital role in supporting teachers, students, and administrators across the district. And research consistently highlights coaching as a powerful catalyst for improved teacher instruction and enhanced student achievement. But here's the question: who's supporting the coach? Enter Forward Edge, your dedicated ally in professional development. Our flexible mentorship options recognized by the ISTE Seal of Alignment, are tailored to meet your unique needs as an instructional coach. So ready to elevate your coaching journey? Visit forward-edge.net to explore how we can empower you with the knowledge and support you need. Start your journey with us today.
All right, welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. Mateus and I are so excited to be back from our little break, and we have Jamie and Celine with us talking about all things getting started and the new year, particularly if you're a new coach or entering a new building. We want to pivot the conversation a little bit. Most of what we've been talking about, I think, has largely been focused on our direct audience that we serve, classroom teachers. And I'd like to think about how the two of you have gone about working with and connecting with admin earlier in the year, the better, or even if it wasn't earlier in the year, what was it that helped you get over a hump and make progress with an admin, right? Because we know how important admin are to either open the gateway to our success in getting in with teachers or make it a roadblock and not help us get in with teachers. So how have you really focused that connection with admin?
I can start. So a couple of the districts that I've had just, more of a temporary, like short-term coaching role. I've been fortunate enough to have admin with open arms as I've come into the district or into the building right off the start. Because if I am filling in for somebody, if they were going on maternity leave and they're just happy to have like another supportive coach coming into the building. So I have been really lucky in that sense. But even so, I always like to start off building a relationship with admin with kind of just listening first, because a lot of the times they have some particular ideas on their mind, goals, whether those are district level goals or building goals, could be instructional related, could be more related to the teachers. But I always like just to start with listening first and really absorbing all of their wants and their needs, and they have any dreams that I can help out with, and then marinating on that and then coming up with like thoughtful responses rather than just like spewing out. So really being thoughtful about that conversation. And I feel like if I'm listening first, that lets them know that I am just there to be supportive in any way that I can.
Do you have any specific questions you like to ask? Because they have the information that you might want to get started with. So any questions that you have in mind when you first talk to them? Stuff you want to find out?
I always like to ask if there is a certain teacher, group of teachers, grade level, whether it's a grade level or a department, that they would like special kind of assistance with, or someone that I can really be diving into first. Because yes, I definitely want to go around and meet all the teachers in general, but if there's any sort of group that the admin has on the top of their mind that they know has been asking for some support, or they're just wanting to provide a little bit more support, I always like to nail that down first, and it gives me a good direction to go on.
And what about you, Celine?
I actually went into a district that already had a coach previously. One of my big things going in was meeting with everyone that had ties with that previous coach, starting with our curriculum director and then working my way down. And every single group that I met with, my question was, what is it that you enjoyed or that you found helpful from the previous coach that you would like me to carry on? That was important for me because starting in a district that I had no idea about, I wanted to ensure that whatever was based in their mission wise was carried out throughout the next part of the year. And then I could add my own flair onto that later down the road versus me just starting on a fresh plate. So that was very important to me, is understanding where they left off and what they might want to do pushing forward.
I really appreciate that connection and that thoughtfulness that you're making, like on behalf of the teachers, because we all know, we've been there. We see it happen over and over where turnover causes this initiative fatigue because the next person walks in, it's, I'm doing my thing now. So I just appreciate that thought that you put into it on their behalf of, okay, I've got all these great ideas of my own that I know would be awesome, but what are the key things that I need to not shake up on these teachers right now to give them some consistency moving forward?
Yes. And I loved it too because it did allow me to create things that they needed right away. So, for example, they were like, oh, yeah, we love that she had the PD on the potty in the bathroom, or like the little PD posters posted everywhere. So if you could continue that, because I would have never known that if that was something that they wanted right away. Or they like, yeah, we love that you would come to all the staff meetings that are present or available. Just noting little things that they would like me to participate in right off the bat was very important. I agree, it did make a difference in how I was about to approach things just based off of my training. And then after that, I think the big thing was meeting consistently. So I utilize Google Calendar. Our school is a Google school, but any type of calendar or system that your district might have, I would say just having a scheduled, consistent meeting. I did mine once a month, and I would overlap that with just the main curriculum director. So then my admin knew that I met with them this week, and then I would be following up with what we talked about with the top of the chart there, so that they knew that we had to meet, because I would be giving that information to someone else later.
Well, intrinsic motivation.
Yes, kept me on track as well, because I knew that prior to this meeting, I would also be bringing to the table what I've been working on with the teachers. We all had something that we had to contribute at the end of the day. That was probably the most beneficial thing for me throughout the school year.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is also a very good point, especially if you initially have those meetings and after meeting 2 or 3, you're like, I really don't have anything for you guys to talk about. You're gonna hurt yourself in the process. You want to show that you're making progress with your teachers and everything.
Yes, exactly.
So we're gonna lead into our last question.
All right, let's do it.
We always ask, what are the top 3 tips you can give our coaches right now off the bat? So we're starting the year off with 6, 2 times 3.
Oh my
Strong
God.
start to the year.
So
Who wants to go
spoiled.
first?
Yeah,
Right?
top 3 tips for coaches starting off a new year.
My top 3 tips would be to be flexible, going with the flow, pitching in wherever you're needed, whether that's an ask from an admin or from a teacher in particular. I always try to be visible as well. Celine hit on this a little bit earlier. At the current district that I'm in long term, I don't have a set office, but actually really enjoy that because I can bounce around through the buildings throughout the day, whether it's walking in the hallway or being in the teacher's lounge or sitting in the back of a teacher's classroom just to check out the awesome things they're doing with their students. Being visible, really important. And then being accessible. If a teacher can't track me down in person, I always set up a resource center on the school's LMS. So anything that I create PD wise or informational, I can post it there. Teachers can have access to it. I always, like Celine was just saying, making sure to use some sort of scheduling calendar option, have that in my signature line. So making sure that I'm accessible to teachers too is really helpful, and teachers are definitely appreciative of that.
Love it.
That's great.
One big one is being consistent, having a plan of action and making sure you're following through with that. Sometimes it means just writing out your agenda for the day or for the week, or figuring out who you want to talk to teacher wise, or if you need to meet with admin, and just having something on your plate for the day versus just running in kind of blind eyed. And I would say even for the beginning of the school year, just having a plan of action of where you want to start and what you want to do. And then the second one for me would probably be being yourself, being a person. I think that's been the biggest thing because it's gotten me through life in general. So I love to joke. I love to make people laugh. And I want people to enjoy themselves. That was one of the biggest things for me as a classroom teacher, was seeing my students smile and actually enjoy learning. So I'm like, I just want to be able to bring that through every part of my career. So knowing that as an instructional coach, I think is important too, is having fun, having a personality. I'm not sure how to do that. Some people, how do you force someone to have a personality? But yeah, just having that. And I would say the last thing is always being willing to learn and research ways that you can benefit your coaching. But outside of that, just thinking about ways that you can grow as a coach. So not just taking 1 year as, okay, I got this under my belt, I'm going to do the same thing again this year. Because I know for me, now that I have 1 year under, I want to improve. So I'm going to continue to research, continue to add things under my belt to make things a little bit better for myself and my teachers.
That is such a good point.
I know. Those were 6 great tips to kick off the second half of the season with.
That was great. That was a great way to end all this. Those were 6 solid tips. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Do you have anything to brag? I always ask people if they have anything to brag about, anything cool that you guys are doing, and kind of how can people find you? Where can they find you on social media? Where can they listen to you DJing? Things like that.
Goodness gracious.
Celine.
I have a hard time. You all know I've been Clark Kenting my identity as a DJ.
We're not here for that, Celine. We're gonna out you.
Yeah, be a person, be who you are. I But you can follow everything because I'm just now meshing everything into my instructional space. Miss Thomas 22 on Twitter is where you'll find mainly all my stuff.
Jamie?
I'm at Jamie Clausius on Twitter. I probably not posting as much cool stuff as Celine is, but try to get out there and do some fun stuff.
And Jamie's IE and Clausius is Clausius.
You got it.
Great.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Thank you so much, guests, for being here. You guys are awesome and have given us some great advice. Yeah, we're back from break. We can't wait for you to listen to our next couple episodes. And if you have anything you want to give us as feedback, please go to Spotify, Apple Music,
Podcast.
See the break, and I forgot it again.
We almost had it down. And I would say, as you're listening early in the year, or no matter when you're listening, share your tips for kicking off a new year. Tag us, our social media, tag Jamie and Celine if anything they said resonated with you, and we'll share it out. We want to build and expand the island so you don't feel alone. So trying to build a community here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Happy back to school.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.